Hello, Year 8. This is Mr. Perez, and we are going over our first history assessment task. I will first point your direction to um, the weighting of this task at 25%. Um, we are getting the task given actually 1 week earlier in week 9. This is for your benefit, and it's going to be due term 2, week 2. Now, I'll give you a moment to go down to your due dates and find your history class. And I want you to highlight or underline or put a star next to the date of your that this task will be due for your um, particular class. Let's go ahead and go through the task now. So this is historical investigation documentary. So this is a research and respond task that will assess your historical skills. So looking at the task description, the year is 3026 CE. You are an archaeologist who has discovered a perfectly preserved house from the year 2026. Historians of this time know very little about the 21st century, as few sources from this period have survived. Your job is to investigate the site and explain what the source reveals about life in the 21st century. To do this, you are to create a short documentary of 4 to 5 minutes examining the archaeological sources found within the house and using your historical skills to make some observations about life in 2026. So we will be required to use our imagination for this particular task. So, looking at the historical thinking requirement, you must pretend that you know nothing about the objects you have discovered. Like real archaeologists, you must make judgments based on what the item looks like, what it is made of, where in the house it is found, signs of use or damage, or any visible writing or images. You must use these observations to make historical inferences about the origin, purpose, and usefulness of each source. So, with that being said, like it's saying, you need to pretend like you're an alien from another planet that's coming and looking at these particular sources. You got to pretend like you don't know what it's called, you don't know what it is. You're just supposed to um, describe the particular source that you're examining and then giving your inference or your conclusion about what you think it's for, where it's from, and the purpose of understanding life in 2026. So let's go through the different components. So, part A, we need to give a historical context on the site. So, at the beginning of the documentary, you must describe the historical context of the site and explain what life was like in 2026. You may consider technology, communication, entertainment, education, family life, work, transport, and daily routines. I'm going to be jumping back and forth between a scaffold that I've created for these particular segments. So let's look at step one, the historical breakdown. You need to explain what the world was like in 2026. So you're choosing about 2 or 3 areas. So we gave you that list, but I've also broken down the list further in this particular segment. Okay, so this is the way how you're going to start your video to let us know what life may have been like. So we can look at any of the following things here. We can look at physical items or technology, education or work, groups, families, social entertainment. You're basically giving a bit of a fact file about what people were like or what they valued in 2026 in this context of your house. So we have a couple of sentence starters here that you could use. And just I'll just read the first one so we can kind of get a gist of how we are going to create this context. As we look back 1,000 years to 2026, we see a society that was obsessed with, And these are the things that you'll be telling us in this particular part of the introduction, where you will be presenting the historical context of 2026. Let's go back to the task now. Now, the second part is the archaeological investigation. Now, for this one, you must investigate three sources from your house. You must include one written source, one artifact, and one visual source. For each of these sources, you must explain the following. You need to explain the origin. Where in the house was the source discovered? What do you think it was made from or used? How may have used or created it? What is it made from? How might it have been made? What physical features can you observe? How do these observations help you work out the use or significance of the item? The second item that we should be analyzing from this source is the purpose. What do you think the item was used for? Why might it have been created? And then the final one is very important when it comes to usefulness, and this is where you are drawing all your conclusions as a historian, as an archaeologist. What does the source reveal about life in the early 21st century? What does it suggest about people's lifestyles, technologies, values, or experiences? This is going to be a very important part of this particular segment. In our scaffold, I've broken down a bit of the things that you can do when you're talking about these particular sources. We have observation. What do you see, feel? This is where we talk about the different materials or shapes. We have the origin. Where was it found in the house? Who used it? We have our inference. What do you suggest about its use? We have the purpose. Why was it made? And then the usefulness question. What does it tell us about 2026? Okay, so these are all very good questions for you to ask as you prepare first before you start your recording of your documentary. Let's continue on with the notification. So your requirements for this documentary, it must be between 4 and 5 minutes in length. You must include a transcript as part of your submission. So you will have to write up a script before you start recording, because we need to correlate what you're saying with a script. You must be clearly, and your documentary should be structured and engaging. Creative presentation is encouraged. If you want to dress up, if you want to use some special effects that you may be able to use, fantastic. If you want to put on a particular persona, you can as well. So this task will assess how well you can analyze sources to make evidence-based judgments about origin, purpose, and usefulness. It will assess how you communicate historical ideas clearly and in a structured and engaging way, and use evidence to explain what sources reveal about life in the past. We have 3 separate outcomes that you will be assessed on. We have number 1, communicates historical ideas using historical terms and concepts. The second one is explains the key features of past societies. And the third one is uses evidence from sources to support historical accounts and explanations about the past. So you will receive in your first report, you will see these 3 separate outcomes with 3 separate letter grades for this particular task. Like I said, make sure you understand and know when your assessment will be due. We will be submitting on the Canvas. So pay particular attention to your ability to upload a video. It can be tricky. You can always record your video and then upload it to YouTube and then give us the YouTube link. Otherwise, it may be tricky, especially if your video is a very large file and maybe a gigabyte or more. You may be required to go through the YouTube route to make things a little bit easier for submitting. Again, it's better that you try early, so that way we can understand, we can work out and troubleshoot any issues that you may have. All right. It will not be accepted that, on the day of, you're like, I tried, but it didn't work. And you did not ask ahead of time. So it's going to be important to stay organized in this particular assessment, especially when it comes to submitting this particular video file. Let's go back to our scaffold here. So we have a step-by-step guide here of how and what we should be doing first. Number one, we should be selecting our artifacts. We should be researching the context of 2026. We should then write our transcript before we start filming or recording. But make sure we're speaking clearly and we stay in that persona that we are putting in that entertaining and engaging way. And then make sure that you submit your video on time through your Canvas portal. Now, here's a bit of a breakdown of your video. You have 4 to 5 minutes. So here's the best way that we can break it down. The first minute, you will focus on your historical context, all right? And then we will have 1 minute per source. So 1 minute for our artifact, 1 minute for our written source, 1 minute for our visual source, and then you have 1 minute to, if you go over or shorter, or to come up with some final conclusion or summary about 2026. Be mindful to stay within that time frame, because after the 5 minutes, your teachers will stop watching the video and will assess from whatever was in those 5 minutes. So make sure you don't ramble. This is where your script comes into play. Like I said, I've given us some scaffolded information to help us develop our context, help us to analyze our sources and the information that we may need. I've given us a couple of examples of these of the what it looked like to analyze a particular source. So I just chose a digital projector. So this is something that you can write in your scripts. I've uncovered a small rectangular box made of matte black synthetic polymer. I observe a large glass eye at the front and several ports at the back of the thick data cables. Because it was found bolted to the ceiling of a classroom, I can infer its purpose was to beam light and data from a computer slab on into a wall. This is useful because it reveals the 21st century education relied on large-scale visual displays to communicate information to groups. We don't have to necessarily answer all the questions. Some sources will be able to answer all of them. Some sources we won't be able to answer all of them. That's okay, as long as you hit all of the elements. Now, a couple of things to remember. The practical quick start tips. The alien rule. Pretend like you've never seen these items before. If you find a fork, don't call it a fork. Call it a silver tool with 4 sharp points. Write the transcript first and then use your inference. I observed this feature, which leads me to infer some sort of conclusion, historical conclusion. I've given us a checklist here for us to look at, and I've also created a sample video that you guys will watch after this to see what the assessment will look like. One last thing that I want to point our attention to is our marking criteria. We want to make sure that we are all aiming for the outstanding band of the criteria. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections, each worth 5 marks. Now, these sections provide us with a clear instruction of what it's going to take to get 5 marks for that particular section. So, looking at our historical context provides a detailed and perceptive explanation of life in 2026, showing strong understanding of social and technological features. This has given us a start for what we should be looking at in our context, along with the scaffolded questions. The second part is origin and archaeological inference. Thoroughly describes the origin of 3 sources, including where they found them, their physical features and materials, using observations to make logical historical inferences. Again, logical doesn't make sense. Is it facts that we are presenting, not just making something up to be silly. All right, it must be logical, these historical inferences or conclusions. The next one is purpose, use of evidence. Did you insightfully explain the likely purpose of all three sources using origin and physical evidence to justify your interpretation? The facts that we're presenting through our observations should be the evidence we use to justify our interpretation. That means we defending our argument. Because I see this, it means that. Again, we're not just making things up out of thin air. We must use our evidence. The next one is on usefulness. Perceptively explains what all three sources reveal about life in the 21st century. This is a whole section on its own again with like purpose. What do we see? Again, we have to use our evidence using the thoughts of origin and purpose to make sure that we are giving the most usefulness towards historians about what life was like in 2026 in the 21st century. The last one deals with our presentation of our documentary. Is it highly engaging? Is it well structured? Does the documentary stay within the time frame? And is speech consistently clear and confident? Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you must make sure you watch your video and that we can hear the sound of your documentary. My recommendation is have somebody else open it up on their device and see if the sound comes out. Again, we have to troubleshoot ourselves. We have to make sure that when we submit, we are submitting our copy, our file that works, that has sound and is not blurry or doesn't take away from your hard work that you've put into this assessment task. If you have any questions or concerns, please see your history teacher sooner rather than later. You will have the school holidays to work on this assessment task. So we are expecting to see very highly engaging historical videos that we will thoroughly enjoy watching and marking, and we hope that you guys will enjoy this process of being immersed in history and being a historian to hopefully inspire some of you guys later on to be future historians or archaeologists. If you have any questions, please reach out and enjoy the sample video. I've made it. It's me who stars in it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.